Your violence against women and girls strategy is indeed 99 pages long, and yet you've decided to just devote one page, plus a couple of very small other mentions, to female genital mutilation. Now, this is a very serious subject in the context of abuse to women. National health figures show that health professionals have identified 2,500 cases of FGM in London alone, and that's 50% of all the cases in the country. So do you think one page does justice to the weight and seriousness of a subject that you so rightly define within your one page as child abuse?
Well, I mean, I'm not sure if I would characterise the entire strategy on FGM as the one page in the, as you called it, in the document. It's an issue we take very seriously, which is why it was backed up by investment, and why in the additional monies that I allocated to policing in the last budget hearing, we allocated additional money to FGM. I've also looked at the report from the Assembly on FGM, which the Chair, Janet Arnold, has done a forwarded, and I think all the recommendations in there are things that our policies are doing.
If you take it so seriously, Mayor, I would suggest it warrants far more than one page. Lots of other subjects had far more than just one page. Within this one page, I'd like to bring your attention to a paragraph in it. There's been a drive in recent years to empower the police around FGM and focus on achieving prosecutions. Despite this, you wrote the following statement in the strategy. While legislation has proved the tool to take action, many believe there is too much emphasis on prosecutions, and we are aware that some consider this not to be in the interest of the child, who may suffer additional trauma if the life of their family is broken up through the prosecution of parents or other relatives. I understand that since this has been highlighted, your office have been forced to clarify that this isn't necessarily your view, which I'm very relieved to hear. But do you actually think it was necessary to give credence to those thoughts on this one page containing all the information that you were going to give on FGM?
Can I find it astonishing if anybody was trying to make cheap party points on FGM or trying to mislead the Assembly? Because if you read on, it says...
Yes, I know, I've read it.
If you read on, it says, we advocate for enforcement action to take place alongside efforts which focus on prevention and encourage local areas to invest in provisions which support women and girls at risk of FGM in London. It also goes on to talk about the work taking place in enforcement. It says, for example, and I'm sure you're not misleading the Assembly, the MPS has our full support in seeking to arrest and prosecute more perpetrators. It's funny how you didn't read that bit on the page,
yes,
but you read the previous bit.
I can assure
Some
you
would say try to mislead the Assembly to make cheap points on FGM.
No, I'm sure every Assembly member that needs to has actually read the 99-page document, and I'm sure many of them cannot understand why there is just one page on FGM if you are so interested in it, which you purport to be. I've never seen anything like that written around domestic violence. One could quite happily say that some would say, ignore domestic violence because if you do anything, it will break the family up. But of course we wouldn't say that. It's too serious. FGM is very serious, Mr. Mayor. And to actually dedicate one page out of 99 pages to it without any promise of where we're going, we must consider that we still haven't had one prosecution and 50% of all cases are in London. I would suggest that you should be taking this far more serious,
Well, Chair,
Mr. Mayor.
It's quite astonishing that this Assembly member holds the Mayor accountable for the actions of judges, juries, the CPS. It's quite astonishing, but that's what we expect from people who want to make cheap points on FGM. The reality is that our strategy talks about enforcement, tough enforcement. The subheading, which was not read out, again, by the Assembly member, was a stronger response to harmful practices, a stronger response. So enforcement is crucial, so is education and community engagement. Why do we know so? Because the Assembly, of which he's a member, told me so in their report a few weeks and months ago. So look, I appreciate the challenges there are for the Assembly member to make party points at MQTs, but not on FGM. Not on FGM. That's beneath even her.
Well, you're very often rude, Mr. Mayor, but you've excelled yourself today. My point being It's your strategy, yet another strategy, let me point out, that has got absolutely no key performance indicators in it, absolutely no direction of where it's going, which actually strategies should. And my actual point, and I don't make it as a cheap political point, is the fact that many of us around this table think FGM is worthy of a great deal more than one page in a 99-page document. In truth, one has to wonder whether you wanted it in there at all, because there's lots and lots of pages on misogyny, domestic violence, and quite right too, but one measly page on FGM. Perhaps we should make that clear to all these associations and charities that are doing their very best to bring this to the attention of everybody. It's a heinous crime, and something needs to be done to it. And I would say, again, it's not a cheap political point. More than one page deserves to be in a document that is about women and girls.
Well, Chair,
The UK is blocking Conservatives from visiting that country. They say Conservatives could be hazardous to the nation's diversity somehow. This past weekend, American YouTube personality Brittany Pettibone and her Austrian boyfriend were barred from entering the UK because they planned to interview Tommy Robinson, an outspoken critic of Islam. Then on Monday, British police halted a visit by Canadian journalist Lauren Southern on the grounds she was, quote, a radical Christian and therefore possibly a terrorist. Meanwhile, radical Muslims, more than 400 former ISIS fighters, are believed to have re-entered Britain without any problem at all. Indeed, they were welcomed. Huh? Katie Hopkins is a columnist with The Rebel. She wrote the book Rude, and she joins us now. Katie, it's great to see you. I mean, only a country that really hates itself, its heritage, its own people, would act like this.
It's absolute madness, Tucker. I can't even tell you. For the regular British man or woman in the street, they're just shaking their heads and going, what has this country come to? We're welcoming back the mad mullahs. We're welcoming back the jihadis after they've done their jihad in Iraq or Syria. And by the way, they're not that good at jihad. You know, so you're supposed to blow yourself up if you come back. You probably weren't that great at jihad in the first
Good
place.
point.
But we are turning away Conservatives who just want to stand up for being Christian Conservatives. And our Home Office here has sided with the Islamists of Luton. We seem to have some new blasphemy laws here in the UK that we didn't really know about, but are certainly being enforced.
Blasphemy laws that are applied to Christians, but not to Muslims. So what undergirds this? So, of course, you know, for centuries, Britain sent forth Anglican missionaries to spread Christianity around the world, and by the way, they did. And now they would not let those same people in their own country in favor of ISIS members. What animates this? Why the change? Why do they feel this way?
There's this pervasive thought that's spread amongst Liberals, it's amongst the Labour Party, the Democrats, if you will, and the Conservatives. We have a Conservative government in power. You wouldn't believe it. It seems to be that being white is considered wrong. Being Christian is considered wrong. Trump is wrong. And then there's a list of right answers. To be Islamic is right. To welcome back jihadis is right. We shouldn't prosecute them. We should embrace them. And it's really getting to a point here in the UK where, you know, we're up there on the endangered species list. To be a white Christian Conservative woman like myself, I'm right up there on the endangered, you know, animals list, up there with the black rhino. And the black rhino has got an advantage because he's black.
So, I mean, the UK is a democracy, purportedly. You voted for Brexit. You still get to vote there for the time being. The majority of your population, I would bet you my card, does not agree with the policies I just described. Why are they putting up with them?
There's this kind of sense right now, this place, this country has never been this tense. It feels like a pressure cooker, you know, and someone's screwing down the lid. And there's going to be a tipping point. And that feeling of just people going to be rising up to say, right, no more of this. We will not be silenced anymore. And the thing is, people hold on to certain voices. There's a lot of support for these YouTubers that you spoke of that were banned. Yes. And when you start silencing the people that were even you know, finally speaking out for us. People like myself, in fact, I'm surprised I'm still here. I'm surprised I haven't been deported. You know, them people, there will come a point where enough is enough, and I think there will be some kind of uprising, because watching Conservatives being detained for 2 days, being charged with kind of, or detained on terror, suspicion of terror offences, when they're just young Conservatives with a passion for their culture and a passion for their country, it really is such a disappointing time for the UK.
Yeah.
And I do think there needs to be much more of an attitude where we stop tiptoeing around the cultures that choose to come and join us and start defending the culture they have chosen to join.
It used to be kind of a free country. That's authoritarian, what you're describing. And I'm sorry. Katie, thank you for coming on and telling us about that.